So one of the biggest questions I get is how can I drink alcohol and stay lean? Hi, so my name's Oliver, known as Ro, and I'm an online personal trainer, qualified nutrition coach and owner of Realm Fitness. When it comes to training muscle groups per week, you kind of want to aim for 2 times per week. Now, 2 times, studies have shown that it's actually more optimal for muscle building than 1 times per week, but we find that like 3 times per week can actually be overtraining and not much additional benefit. Now, the good thing about training muscle groups 2 times per week, number one, it's going to help with recovery. So when you train muscle groups 2 times a week, you actually split up the work over 2 sessions instead of 1. So instead of going in the gym on Monday and doing 20 sets on chest, you can actually do 10 sets on Monday and then 10 sets on Thursday. That's going to allow you to recover better and progress with your lifts. It's also going to allow you to train more intensely. So for instance, you're able to go in on a Monday and bench press really heavy and the same on Thursday. And that's actually going to allow you to lift more volume over time, more intense, and give you better hypertrophy. The third reason why this is really beneficial is because if you train muscle groups 2 times per week as opposed to 1, you're actually going to be able to repeat the movement again. So your motor patterns are going to become better. For instance, you could squat on a Monday and you squat on a Thursday, actually replicating the form and the movement is going to allow you to become more competent at that movement and a better lifter. When it comes to losing fat and building muscle at the same time, this is actually possible, but it's quite rare. So there's only certain demographics and groups of people that can do this. So if you're somebody that's very new to training and you have a quite high percent of body fat, this is definitely something you can do. Also, if you're quite detrained and you haven't hit the gym for a while, let's say 1 or 2 years, a body recomposition, so where you lose fat and build muscle at the same time, is definitely possible. Now, the way you want to go about doing this is ensuring that the diet that you have is very high protein, that you're eating in a calorie deficit. So, you're consuming less calories than you burn, and making sure that that deficit's not too extreme. If that deficit's too extreme, you run the risk of losing muscle, and ideally you don't want to do that. If you stick to these key principles, it's definitely possible, but remember that this isn't the most optimal way to build muscle. Okay, you're not maximizing muscle building, you're just basically building a small amount of muscle whilst dropping the fat. That's a body recomposition, and it's definitely possible. So when it comes to foods that fill you up the most, what you need to look at is something called the Satiety Index. So a while ago, they did a study on the foods that fill you up the most, and they ranked them in an order of which fills you up the best, right? So foods such as white potatoes, oats, vegetables, eggs, these were at the top of the list. These foods as well are not hugely calorific, but they fill you up. And when you're dieting, these are really what you need to ensure that you can adhere to your overall diet. At the end of the day, you can have foods that are low in calories, but if they're not filling you up, it's no good. So you want foods that are low in calories, that fit within your range, but also fill you up and ensure that you can stick to your diet. So when it comes to what foods you should eat to build muscle, this is kind of a trick question because there's no such thing as muscle building foods. As much as people and marketers want to tell you that, really what it comes down to is, are you eating in a calorie surplus? And if you're doing that, you basically want to find foods that fit within that. So for instance, when you're looking at building muscle, usually your diet's going to be predominantly high carbs, moderate protein, and fairly low to moderate fat. So you want to find foods that fit into that. Things like burritos can be great as it fits within that. Low, calorie pizzas can be good. Oats with, whey can be another good option. So essentially you can eat anything, but what it really comes down to is your total calories, your target, whether it fits in with your protein, carbs, and fats, and essentially what you can stick to. Because, if you have foods that you find are filling you up too much, you're not going to hit your surplus. So you want to find foods that fill you up and also fit in with your diet and your lifestyle. So when it comes to eating a high-fat diet, there's quite a lot of stigma around it, and a lot of people think that fat is inherently bad. Now, when it comes to fats, you actually need fats to regulate your hormones and, do all the things you need to with your body. The reason why it gets a bad name is because fats is 9 calories per gram, whereas carbohydrates and protein are only 4 calories per gram. So from a calorie point of view, when you eat a high-fat diet, you are inevitably eating more calories, which can be bad when it comes to trying to lose weight. However, if you mitigate the amount of fat that you eat and you don't eat too high, this can be okay, especially if your carbohydrates are quite low and your other overall calories are low. This means you have more room for fats. So fats aren't inherently bad, but if you've got a performance-based goal, for instance, if you want to get stronger in the gym, you want to maximize your lifts and you want to have energy, then I would recommend going for a higher carb diet, 20 to 25% of your total calories coming from fat. That's going to give you the best foundation to build muscle and get stronger in the gym. So I always get the question of how many protein shakes should I have per day, and it's kind of like asking, how much protein should I have per day, or how many chicken breasts should I eat per day? It's very dependent on the person you are, your lifestyle, and what you need. For instance, a 200-pound guy that's very active and that maybe, dieting, he's going to need a lot more protein than a small woman that's sedentary sat at a desk in an office job. So when it comes to protein shakes, it's not about how many you have. What it's about is your total target and how much you need. If you're somebody that's very busy and you move about a lot and you don't have access to food, then whey protein can be a great option. It's also a very bioavailable source of protein, which means your body uses up this protein more, and it's cheap. It's cheap and effective. So if you're on a budget and you're a student, it can be great. The amount that you have, again, will depend on your total protein target. However, for my clients that struggle to get protein in, I recommend them having a shake in the morning when they wake up, and also a shake in the evening as well. That can ensure that they hit their target and not going overboard. When it comes to rep ranges per exercise and what you should be doing, it's totally dependent on you, your training, career, and what your goals are. For instance, if you're somebody that's quite new to the gym, you probably want to get better at the movement and better at movement patterns. So you want to try and focus mainly in 10 to 12 reps for your compounds, and then slightly higher, 15 to 20 for your isolations. This is just going to ensure you're lifting with correct form, you're lifting safely, and you don't get injured. Now, if you're someone that's more advanced and you really want to build your strength and you want to build some more muscle, then I'd recommend maybe working at around 3 to 6 reps for your compounds, and then around 10 to 12 for those isolations. Again, lifted with proper form, but once you're more experienced, it's sort of okay for you to lift a bit heavier because you're used to getting the bar and loading it up compared to when you're a novice and you're still trying to complete the movements correctly. When it comes to plateauing in the gym and training plateaus, I think the first thing that you need to do is assess where you are. So for instance, you need to start tracking your lifts and actually seeing, what you're lifting week on week. If you find that, you're actually not lifting any heavier or any more volume, then you need to look to increase that from a training point of view, number one. The second step is to look at your nutrition. So you need to see, am I actually eating in a calorie surplus? Am I eating enough foods? Am I getting adequate protein? Because, the carbs that you eat are going to give you energy to lift, and the protein is going to repair the muscles that are torn during your sessions. So ensuring that you've got that on point with your training to ensure you're lifting heavier, that's a great way to get over training plateaus. You may even need a rest. So if you find that you're absolutely hammering yourself in the gym, you may need to do a deload. So this is where you reduce your training intensity and your volume for a week or a couple of weeks, give your body a break so you're rested and recovered so you can go back to it to lift heavier again. So one of the biggest questions I get is, how can I drink alcohol and stay lean? So it's a great question, and it is possible. What I'd recommend, number one, is the day that you're going out, make sure that you have a protein-based breakfast or even fast in the morning. That's going to ensure that you can save calories for later in the day, mainly from carbohydrates and fats that can go towards your alcohol in the evening. I then recommend getting a full body session in during the day to ensure that all muscle groups get hit, and then also doing some additional cardio, because that extra energy expenditure is going to allow you to have some more calories for when you want to drink some alcohol in the evening. Where you can find me on Instagram at Roanmoir, same as YouTube, and my website is roanmoirfitness.com. So thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, PROMiXX, for having me, and yeah, make sure you like the video if you did and subscribe to the channel.